Hey fam, we're back with another story. What if Naruto became Sona Sitri's wildcard at Kuoh Academy? So before we start, if you are craving adult mature content, Joe, in my Patreon now, link are in the description box. Alright, enough talk, let's fire it up. Yawn, another day of school. A male teenage voice said as he stood up. Standing at 6 feet 3 inches, the male ran his hands through his blonde locks. Piercing blue eyes, looked around the rather plain bedroom. His body is muscular, but he has a rather lean frame. 3 distinct whisker-like scars on each cheek. After a quick shower, the person is wearing a black knee-length gakurin. It looks more like a trench coat with a stiff collar. The upper chest open with the use of 2 gold buttons in the shape of AR rows, one pointing up and the other down, and showing a red-orange shirt. The gakurin has an orange flame-like pattern on the bottom, collar, and wrists. A pair of fitting black pants held up by a gold chain-like belt. His outfit is completed with a pair of black shoes and a black headband with a orange swirl pattern. After a quick breakfast, he grabbed his messenger bag and left. A stray paper fell out of the bag and flew in front of the camera. Naruto Kujo is what read on the paper. On his way to school, Naruto sighed and looked down. He tried to avoid the stares of people. In particular the stares of female students. Cough cough, fangirls cough. Unfortunately, the world has another plan. A group of about 5 girls spots him and walk up to him. Hello Naruto-kun, the first girl says as he walked next to him. Naruto just looked down at her as she blushed. Who do you think you are talking to, Naruto-kun, like that? A second girl yelled to the first one as she pushed her out of the way. A small argument ensued as they walked behind Naruto. Shut up. You all are annoying, Naruto yelled as he turned around. Just as fangirls did, they began to squeal and blush. Walking onto campus, Naruto received more looks from his fellow students. The males glared as they mumbled about pretty boys, and some of the girls blushed and began whispering to themselves. Naruto's POV. High school. Possible the worst place a teenager can be in. Especially if you or me. The girls love me for reasons I do not know. The guys hate me, branding me a delinquent and thinking I am trying to steal the female population from them. Especially 3 in particular, the perverted trio. Matsuda, Motohama, and Issei Hyodo. If you couldn't tell from the name, they are the biggest perverts on campus. Yet in the male population, they see themselves as betters compared to me. In the eyes of the female population, however, they are lower than a dog's shit. Speaking of which, I can see them peeking in to the girls' locker room from a hole in the wall. Sighing, I walked over to them to try to get them to leave. Either way, they try to fight me. You 3 just don't learn, do you? I asked them as they jumped up and turned around to face me. Shut up. Pretty boys like you just look down on us, Issei yelled as he glared at me. If it wasn't for you and Yuto, we would be swimming in glorious opie, Motohama said as his friends agreed. I resisted the urge to facepalm and just took in a deep breath. Look, if you want girls to like you 3, stop being perverts, I said, trying to get them off my back. Yeah right, you just want the opie all for yourself, Issei yelled as he threw a punch at me. SPOV. As president of the student council, I Sona Sitri, or my alias Sauna Shitori, start my school days walking around campus to make sure things are in order. As I walked to behind the locker rooms, I noticed a small commotion. As usual, the perverted trio is there. However, there is also Naruto Kujo, the school's delinquent. I saw Issei Hyodo throw a punch at Naruto. The blonde caught it with ease while glaring at the brown-haired pervert. I tried to get through this without much trouble. I guess you just won't listen, I heard Naruto say as his whole demeanor changed. His facial expression turned cold and his tone turned cold. The perverted trio, being idiots, decided to pick a fight with the delinquent. Issei threw another punch, but Naruto just leaned his head to the left to dodge. Naruto then let go of Issei's hand and socked him across the face. Issei's back hit the wall as his nose was bleeding. Motohama charged at Naruto with his fists raised. Naruto just sidestepped, stuck his foot out, tripped him, and then slammed his elbow on Motohama's back. Matsuda was cowering on the floor seeing his 2 friends taken down so easily. I would have let you 3 go without any trouble. Just learn from their mistakes, Naruto said as he turned around. I saw Matsuda not heed his warning and jumped at Naruto. What caught me off guard is that Matsuda fly back with his nose broken. Then I noticed it, I could just barely see it. An arm connecting to Naruto's shoulder punched Matsuda. I could not see it clearly but I saw it. Needing to get to the bottom of it, I walked over to him. Normal POV. Naruto Kujo-san, you have to come with me. Sona said as she walked up to the delinquent. Why do I have to? Naruto replied as he turned around to face her. Sona said nothing as she just pointed to the 3 beat-up perverts. Sighing, Naruto followed her back to the student council room. Unknown to him, a pair of eyes was watching him with interest. Looks like I found another interesting student here. The owner of the eyes said with a small giggle. Student council room. When they arrived, Sona closed the door and looked at Naruto curiously. So, care to explain to me why you were fighting them? Sona asked the delinquent. I tried to get them to leave peacefully, but they wouldn't listen. Naruto said the gist of what happened. Alright, I'll let you off with a warning this time. Sona said as she crossed her arms. Naruto just sighed and left the room. Tsubaki. Sona said as a magic circle formed and out came the vice president. Yes, Tsubaki asked. I want you to help me keep an eye on Naruto Kujo. Sona said. 2 days later. Naruto is now walking at around sunset through the park on his way home from work. As he was walking up to the fountain, he noticed. Issei was there with a rather beautiful girl. Looks like he actually got himself a girlfriend. I give her my sympathy. Naruto thought as he walked through the trees in order not to disturb them. That is until he heard the girl say something that made him stop cold. Will you die for me? She said as the sky changed color and she also changed. She is now taller and wearing an outfit that reminded Naruto of something akin to bondage. The thing threw him off was the pair of black wings on her back. What? Issei asked in shock. Naruto had to give him props, he's not focused on a girl's bust this time. Naruto just sighed, why is his life so bizarre? Naruto then made his presence known. Yar days. Leave the pervert alone, Naruto said keeping a cool face. Turning around, the girl created a pink spear-like weapon. Witness. I can't allow you to live, she said as she threw the spear at Naruto. Just as it was a meter from Naruto, the same arm formed and punched the spear away. What was that? She asked as she created another spear. Taking the opportunity, Issei ran like a little bitch. He escaped. All because of you. My partner will kill him, but I am mad, she cried as she formed multiple more spears. She sent them all at Naruto and then began leaving with a smirk on her face. Until she heard something that made her stop. Turning around, she saw Naruto standing there completely unharmed but with something standing before him. It was humanoid and stood the same height as Naruto. It also has the same type of build as Naruto, lean and muscular. It has orange skin for its main color. Over its body, it has gold-yellow armor pieces on his body, bracers with gauntlets that has orange studs on the knuckles, a breastplate covering the upper chest, cuisse and greaves. It has gold but with an orange outline shoulder pads in the shape of arrows. Its most noticeable feature is the helmet it is wearing. It is like an Imperial officer helmet from Skyrim, just replace the dragon symbol with a orange spiral. What is that? She asked as she formed another spear. This is my stand, Fallen World. Naruto said as Fallen World took a stance. I'll have to be careful. I've never heard of a stand before, she thought. What is your name anyway? Naruto asked as he took a step forward. I'll tell you just before you die. My name is Rainer. The newly named Rainer said in an arrogant tone. Naruto Kujo. Naruto replied as he took a step forward. Too bad I won't remember your name after you die, Rainer said as she created another spear and threw it. Fallen World grabbed the spear and then threw it to the side. Releasing a grunt, Rainer used her wings to fly into the air. Fallen World hit the ground with then something happened that shocked Rainer. The chunks of the ground began to float into the air with a blue aura surrounding it. Naruto pointed to Rainer and Fallen World let out a cry and began hitting the chunks of earth at Rainer. Fallen World cried as Rainer created more spears to counter the rocks. More of the rocks are above her. She has yet to notice. Fallen meteors. Naruto cried as the rocks above Rainer glowed red and were falling down on Rainer. The rocks mainly hit her wings causing her To lose her flight and fall to the ground. Cheap trick. Rainer said as she stood up. A cheap trick is attacking someone who cannot defend himself. Naruto said as he walked up to Rainer. He then used Fallen World to grab Rainer by her throat. I can crush your throat right now. Naruto began as Fallen World's grip began tightening around Rainer's neck. But I'll let you go. Naruto said as Fallen World slammed her onto the ground. Naruto then turned around and began walking away. I'm not taking this falling down. Rainer said as she stood up. She then formed a pink spear and lunged at Naruto. Rainer was not expecting Fallen World to reappear. I was serious about letting you go, oh well. After this, you might want to see a good doctor. Naruto said as Fallen World broke her wrist. Rainer's body then was surrounded by a red aura. Before anything happened, she was able to reach into her breasts and pulled out what looked like a small red ball. The ball was dropped and a smoke was released from the ball as Rainer held her breath. Why do I feel so heavy? Rainer said as she could not move from the spot she was standing on. She could not hold her breath for much longer. Under her, the floor began to crack. She could barely look up and saw Fallen World pull back its fists. Fallen World introduced Rainer to its fists as it gave her a furious barrage of punched. Not only was she being crushed by an unknown force to her, she was having bones broken. Have a nice flight, Naruto said as pointed away and Fallen World pulled back its right fist. Quote exclamation mark quote. Fallen World Kree. Ed as its fist glowed blue and it gave a powerful uppercut to Rainer. She was sent flying upward as her whole body glowed blue. Rainer was not able to control herself as she continued upward. Now I feel that you should come back down to earth. Naruto said as Rainer then glowed red, and plummeted from 15 meters in the air. She would have gotten back up, if not for her wings to be glowing red. I guess this is goodbye. Naruto said as Fallen World disappeared. He then turned around and went on his way. Only for Fallen World to form again to catch a yellow spear. Huh, I guess a pitiful creature like yourself can be worth something. A new female voice said as Naruto turned around. He saw a navy blue-haired female with wings similar to Rainer's in the air. But I guess a low human has limits. She said as she created another spear. She was about to throw the spear, if not for a sharp stone that impaled her right shoulder. She looked down to see Fallen World with its arms stretched out like it threw something. Gah, how dare a low-level being like you do this to me? She yelled in anger as she created another spear. She's just asking for me to go up there to beat her. Yuto thought as he was starting to feel annoyed by this chick. I guess I can tell you my name before you die. My name is Calawarner. Calawarner introduced herself as she created a spear in her left hand. You may have defeated Rainer, but you can never defeat me. Calawarner yelled as she threw the spear at Naruto. Said delinquent said nothing as a spear headed his way. Just as it was an inch from impaling his back, Fallen World grabbed the spear. You know, if you keep underestimating me, you'll get killed. Naruto said coldly as Fallen World destroyed the spear. Mura! Cried Fallen World as it began destroying the ground around Naruto. The chunks of concrete began to glow blue as they went up to surround Calawarner. What is this? Stalling for a plan, Calawarner said as she used her spear to try to move the chunks of concrete. Naruto said nothing as Fallen World destroyed a tree that was behind him. Fallen World then grabbed the sharpest piece of the wood pieces and aimed it. You know, you trying to fight me is useless, Naruto said as the piece of wood glowed red. Fallen World threw the piece of wood at the pieces of concrete and it bounced off each one as the wood repeatedly cut Calawarner. You're finished, Naruto said as the chunk of wood pierced Calawarner's stomach. Then the pieces of concrete glowed red and the ones above Calawarner caused her to crash to the ground. That's that, Naruto said as Fallen World disappeared. I'm still here, Rainer weakly said as she tried to move her weak body. Naruto just huffed as he walked over to Rainer and crouched down. You are still awake, Naruto said as Rainer glared at him. She quickly formed a spear and stabbed Naruto. Well, she would have if not for Fallen World's hand to form and grab the spear. Well, I guess this is bye for now, Naruto said as he stood up and lifted Rainer's head. Rainer let out a few weak chuckles and then said something that surprised Naruto. The smoke was a poison. The poison takes effect in 10 minutes. And it's been 9, Rainer said as she finally fainted. Sweat began to fall from Naruto's face as his vision began to get blurry. He fell on all fours and began to cough up blood. See cheap trick. Cough. Bitch. Naruto coughed out as blood dripped from his lips. Before he was knocked unconscious from the poison's effect, he heard a pair of footsteps walking up to him. What a bizarre power you possess, Naruto-san. Sona said as she pulled out what looked to be a chess piece. A rook to be exact, but it looked different. She just hoped it will work. Later the same night, Sona was able to arrive in the bedroom of Naruto Kujo. She placed him on the bed as she let out a sigh. She placed her hands on his chest as she used a spell to be able to fix his respiratory system from the gas. I wonder what that power was. I believe he called it a stand. I wonder what it is. Sona thought to herself as she looked around the bedroom. Rather plain is the only interesting things were a guitar and an old photo book. Sona then tripped over a box that was sticking out of under the bed. She picked up the box and opened it. Inside the box, there was a single photo and strangely, a torn black hat with gold pieces on it. The photo was of a blonde toddler and a blonde and black-haired woman. On the back of the photo, in faded black ink, were the words, "I'll always love you, my little Jojo." This confused Sona, as she remembered when Naruto was a first-year student, a third year called him Jojo. She then witnessed the blonde delinquent gave him a beating of a lifetime. She quickly placed the photo in the box and returned it under the bed and teleported away as Naruto began to move in his sleep. The next morning, Naruto sat up in his bed as he was sweating. Was all that last night? Those did not seem like the powers of a stand. Was the power something else? Naruto thought to himself as he changed his clothes. He then noticed how the box under his bed had been moved. Naruto shrugged it off as it probably moved it by accident with his clothes. He then left for school as it was getting late for class. Later that day during lunch, Naruto walked across campus to go to his usual spot in a secluded spot behind the school to be by himself. He then felt a hand on his shoulder as he turned around to see a desperate-looking Issei. "Hey, you remember Yuma-chan, right?" Issei yelled in his face as Naruto removed the brunette's hand from his shoulder. The blonde delinquent said nothing as he turned around and ignored Issei. Issei began to grit his teeth as he ran in front of Naruto and attempted to punch him in the face. Naruto caught the fist and returned a punch to Issei's jaw. The punch sent Issei flying back almost 10 meters. That punch was my own, not Fallen World's punch. How was he sent that far? Naruto thought as he walked away. He didn't notice Sona watching him from afar. Later that night, Naruto walked home after another day at work. As he took the same route as the night before. As he walked past a large tree, he turned to face the tree as he felt an ominous feeling from there. Fallen World then summoned itself to catch a light spear that was sent his way. Naruto took a slight step back as the two women who he fought yesterday appeared before him. Well, looks like we can have our revenge," Rainer said as Kalawarner created a spear also. She also sent the spear flying as the two females took to the skies. Fallen World threw the spear away as Naruto ran to not be an easy target. Quote! Fallen World yelled as it punched the ground, which caused pieces of stone to glow blue and surround Naruto to make it harder for the spears to hit him. He then took notice on how his Fallen World looks different. The yellow and orange are different. The orange turned into a dark amberish color while the yellow turned into a shining gold color. The stones in the air are more than the usual number of stones in the air in one punch than normal. Meaning that whatever happened last night somehow altered his stand. Well, at least we know you still use the same tricks, Rainer said as it sounded like they fought a long time ago even though it was just last night. She then grabbed Kalawarner and used her as a meat shield to bust through the stones in the air. Cried Fallen World as it sent its right fist at the two. The fist busted through Kalawarner's back and through her stomach as Rainer let go and left Kalawarner to die. "You bitch, letting your comrade to die just get through some makeshift shield," Naruto said, as Fallen World carefully pulled its fist out as Kalawarner partly glowed red and blue. Fallen World ability Red and Blue. Using both red and blue, Fallen World can cause any wound from affecting the user or whoever it is on. For example, red would keep the blood from spilling out while on the inside of the wound, a small combination of red and blue keeps blood pumping and organs working. She was a weakling anyway. Rainer said as she flew directly at Naruto. Said delinquent just spat on the ground as the winged female inched closer. As soon as she was in range, a beating of a lifetime will be ensured. Mura, were the cries of Fallen World as it gave Rainer multiple punches across her body. Yar yar, looks like you didn't learn. Naruto said as Rainer was sent crashing through floating stones and crashed through a few trees. He failed to notice the smirk that Rainer had on her face. Naruto looked down and gasped as he noticed some strange-looking bomb-like objects around him. Mura, Fallen World cried as it punched the objects away. Then they all exploded, with the explosion consuming himself and Kalawarner. This power, Naruto said as Fallen World attempted to protect its user from it. It ultimately failed as the explosion fully consumed the young delinquent. Naruto was sent out of the explosion and sent crashing through some trees and finally landing in the fountain, in front of a shocked Issei. Nani? Issei said as Naruto began to move. He then began to take some steps back as he saw a man in a hat and trenchcoat began to walk to them. The man ducked himself as Danasik and formed a blue spear. He threw the spear and it flew to Issei's chest as he then walked away. He stopped as he heard the water moving and moved to see a bleeding Naruto. Standing with Fallen World holding the spear. Well, I guess you still have some fight in you. Danasik said as he walked to Naruto, his voice filled with arrogance. I guess Rainer and Kalawarner weren't strong enough to kill you, you pathetic little devil. Danasik said as he formed a blue spear as he aimed to stab through Naruto's heart. Fallen World cried as it slammed his fist in the side of the man's head. Nani? He still has the strength to attack. Danasik thought as Naruto grabbed the collar of his coat to hold him up. Yar, it's a shame that you fools are stupid. Nothing to that though. You however, are gonna end up with brain damage. Naruto said he wiped some blood from his lips and looked at Danasik. Mur. Fallen World cried as it gave due. Seek a fast-paced flurry of punches as the stand ended the barrage of punches with a uppercut as Danasik glowed blue until he was 20 meters into the air. He then glowed red and slammed down to the ground creating a crater as he glowed red. Issei, I don't know why this happened. I just hope I don't have to be the one to save you a third time. Naruto spoke to Issei and fell over. Issei ran for his life like a little bitch. A few seconds later, two separate groups of people arrived. Era, looks like my little Kahai can really take a beating. Akano Himahima said as she held her arms under her massive breasts. But looks like he will die if I don't do something. Rias Grimori said as she pulled out a rook chess piece as she walked to the downed delinquent. She stopped as she noticed the second group. Sona, I see you are interested in him also. Rias said as she turned to face Sona and her queen Tsubaki. Sona then walked up to Naruto and turned to face Rias. You are too late Rias. I already made him my subordinate last night as you got Issei. Sona said as Tsubaki Shinra moved to teleport the three away. He is my new rook. Sona finished as the three teleported away. The next morning, Naruto opened his eyes and woke to find himself in his room. He then felt weight on both sides of his chest. He looked down to see Sona and Tsubaki laying there naked. Nani? Naruto thought as he also found himself naked. What happened? Last thing I remember is I fought that bitch Rainer and that Danasik guy. Naruto thought as he tried not to move much. He begged, and to panic more as the two beautiful females began to stir themselves awake. Naruto used Fallen World to lift the two off of him enough that he can get off of the bed. Now to get dressed before these two wake up. Naruto thought as he walked to his closet. He only had time to put on boxers as the two females sat up in bed. The two then looked away with blushes present on their faces. Now can I ask you why you two are in my house? Especially in my bedroom, Naruto asked as he crossed his arms. The two could not answer for a minute because of how much they were blushing. Well, because Ona began as she pushed her glasses up against her eyes. Because of what happened for 2 nights in a row! Fallen World cried as it sent a fist between the two females. What happened then? What were they? Naruto said as he stared them down. Come into the student council room today and I will explain everything. Sona said as she and Tsubaki began to get dressed. After a little bit, the three were changed. The lone male parted ways from the older females as he walked away. Later that day, Naruto walked into the student council room as he noticed all the members inside. "Ah, Naruto, you're here," Sona said as she stood up from his desk. He noticed how the other members, minus Sona and Tsubaki, were keeping a calculated look on him. "Explain. Now," Naruto said as he wanted to get down to business. His stand's arm reached and grabbed a chair for him to sit on. No one said a word as some were too surprised on what the arm was. "All right, I said I will explain. What attacked you last night and the night before were fallen angels. Angels that fell from heaven," Sona said as she walked in front of her desk. "Fallen angel?" Naruto asked as his brow arched. "Fallen angel. A natural enemy from angels and devils," Sona said as Naruto began to get more confused. "Angels, devils," Naruto said as he stood up. "You expect me to believe the being of angels, devils, and fallen angels from the Bible are real?" Sona tensed as she expected Naruto to summon the being, not knowing it was called a stand. "Okay, I believe you," Naruto said as some people's face faulted from that. How do you believe that so easily?" Sona asked confused as when she recruited Saji, the piece she got before Naruto, freaked out for like an hour. "I have the power to summon a spiritual being that can control gravity. I can possibly believe that," Naruto said as Sona nodded her head. "Before anything else, let me explain more about what I was talking about. Mainly about the devils. Because we are devils," Sona said as she summoned her wings. Along with the other people in the room. "Nani? Fallen world," Naruto said as he summoned his stand and everyone else tensed up. Sona then put her hands up as a sort of peace offering. "Calm down, Naruto. Let me fully explain," Sona said in a rather caring tone as the two stared each other down. Naruto sighed, recalled Fallen World, and sat down. "Now as I was saying, we devils are not as you would think. Now," Sona explained for what seems like hours to Naruto, but was actually one. When the older female is finished, Sona noticed that the blonde delinquent was asleep. "Naruto," Sona said as she clapped her hands in front of the former's face. Naruto woke up and met the glare of Sona. "Were you even paying attention to what I was saying?" Yeah, peerage members. Natural enemies of angels and fallen angels, weak to light powers and holy objects. I can't quite remember about reincarnated devils," Naruto said as she sighed. "Reincarnated devils, you sing an evil piece given to a high-class devil. They take the form of chess pieces. The pieces are a 1 queen, 2 bishops, 2 knights, 2 rooks, and 8 pawns." Sona began as Naruto readied himself for another lecture. "Bishops are well used for magic, knights are obviously well equipped for swordplay and their speed helps them with it, rooks are best for strength but their speed is lacking, and the Kuoh piece has the strengths of the other pieces," Sona said as Naruto tried to follow along. "Finally the pawns, they are able to promote in enemy territory or with their king's permission. The pawns are able to promote themselves to have the ability to use the strengths of the bishops, knights and rooks," Sona said as she finished the basic explanation. "And what piece am I?" Naruto asked as he stood up and stretched. That actually felt good as he was sitting in place for over an hour. "You are a rook, a castle to defend your king," Sona said as she poked the taller student in the chest. "Well, anything to protect my beautiful king," Naruto joked as Sona blushed. Suddenly the only other male in the room stood up. "Aura, quit flirting with her and take this seriously," he said as he slammed his hands on his desk. Many looked at him in surprise, he never had an outburst like that. "What? I am taking this seriously. You're the one who started yelling," Naruto said in his usual monotone voice. This caused the shorter blonde to grit his teeth. "Saji, calm down," Sona said as the newly named Saji. The two blondes stared each other down. Like a switch flipped in both of them, Naruto summoned the Fallen World and Saji summoned a lizard-like thing on his left hand and wrist. "Naruto. Saji. Stand down," Sona said as the two stared at her. Naruto grunted and recalled Fallen World, and Saji let the lizard gauntlet disappear. It took 5 minutes before the two blondes stopped staring each other down. "Now Naruto, care to explain what you just summoned?" Sona said as she sat back down at her desk. It took Naruto a minute to think of what to say. After the minute, she took a breath and summoned Fallen World. "This is Fallen World, he is my stand," Naruto said as the other members observed the gold and amber figure. They flinched as the spiritual entity let out his battle cry. Stand. Sona asked as she prepared to take mental notes. She has never heard of a stand. It is the spiritual manifestation of one's fighting spirit. A stand can be in 3 main categories: close range, long distance, and an automatic type. Naruto explained as Sona began to write it down. A close range type, as the name suggests, cannot go further than 3 meters at most. These types of stands have immense speed and strength. Naruto said as Fallen World moved forward, to only reach about 2 meters from Naruto. It showed them the speed of its punches while saying his usual cry of. A long-distance type have a larger range than a close-range type but with weaker attack power. Naruto said as the others nodded their head. It made a little sense that at a closer range gave more damage than the ones with a larger range. Automatic type are stands that act on their own. They follow a simple objective without being directly ordered by their users. Sona now had a list of 3 types of stands, though she felt that Naruto was keeping things from them. Naruto, does your stand have any powers? Sona asked the blonde delinquent. The latter sighed and took a breath. Fallen World touched a book next to its user, and it then glowed blue. The book floated into the air. Saji grabbed the book and the book glowed red. The shorter blonde fell to the floor as he struggled to pick up the book. Nani, Saji said as he could not even get off the floor with the book in his hands. The book stopped glowing and Saji fell onto his ass. Fallen World can control gravity. Naruto said as the others looked shocked. If a stand can control gravity, what other powers do they have? What other powers do stands have? A blue-haired girl, Tsubasa Yura, asked the blonde delinquent. They can have a variety of different powers. So I am not sure what to tell you. I've only ever met one other stand user. And I haven't heard from him since. Naruto said as he walked out of the room. What else are you keeping from us, Naruto? Sona thought as she went over the notes she took. The next day, Naruto walked through the park. He decided to skip school. He spotted Issei as well, but the pervert was too busy checking out women from behind some trees. Stupid pervert, Naruto thought as he passed by the fountain in the park. He wasn't looking where he was going, and bumped into a short girl. Oh sorry, Naruto said as he noticed he knocked over a young blonde nun. She looked to be around his age. He also noticed her suitcase opened with her clothes scattered around her. It's all right, she said as she began to pick up her clothes. Naruto helped her pick up the scattered clothes. A strong gust of wind caused the veil on her head to fly off. She was about to stand to reach it, but Fallen World's arm caught it while Naruto's arm was also reaching out. He handed the veil to her as the nun gained a cute perplexed look on her face. Are you okay? Naruto asked the young nun as he helped her onto her feet. I thought I just saw a golden arm, she said as Naruto was shocked but didn't show any emotion. Did she see Fallen World? She either has a stand or something supernatural is letting her see it. Naruto thought to himself as she introduced herself as Asuya Argento. Naruto Kujo. The blonde delinquent introduced himself. Excuse me Naruto, do you know the way to the local church? Asia asked the taller blonde. The latter had to look away from the cute face she was making. Damn, she's too cute. That should be illegal, Naruto thought to himself as he tried to keep a straight face. Yes I do, follow me, Naruto said as he began to walk off. On the way there, Asia begged and to talk about how she was transferred to Europe to the church in Kuoh. She's really innocent, Naruto thought to himself as he listened to the cheery blonde girl. Are you in school Naruto? I bet you have lots of friends at school, Asia said in a sadder tone. The delinquent noticed the shift in her tone of voice. She must have never had her own friends, Naruto thought. He himself never was the one to have friends. No, I don't really have many friends. I guess you are my first friend, Naruto said with a soft smile as he placed his hand on the young nun's head. She smiled and hugged Naruto. Oh, I always wanted to have friends, Asia happily said as she looked up at the delinquent. This time, Naruto couldn't help himself and blushed. She was just too adorable. A few minutes later, he too made it to a pretty out-of-shape church. Naruto then got an ominous feeling as Asia made her way to the church after thanking the blonde delinquent. Something seems off about this, Naruto sighed as he made his way to the church after Asia. Making sure not to be seen, Naruto hid in the shadows of the church. A smaller blonde-haired girl walked up to Asia. "Glad you can make it, Asia. I am the only one here for now as the other members are injured. But with your sacred gear, you can heal them, right? If you can, please heal Rainer first," she said as Naruto froze. "Shit, she's with those guys," Naruto thought as he remembered the black-winged people he fought. "I have to get Asia away from them." "Well, what do we have here? A shitty little stalker," a new voice said as Fallen World caught a sword that was about to slice him. Exclamation mark, cried Fallen World as it threw Naruto's attacker across the church. "Naruto!" Asia cried as she ran to the taller blonde. She then noticed a short man with a sword and gun. "Asia, stay behind me," Naruto said as the attacker and short girl faced Naruto. "I don't know what you plan for, Asia, but you have to get through me first." "Easy," the short man said as he ran at Naruto. He appeared to Naruto's right, but was sent flying back due to a kick in the side of his head from Naruto. Naruto then grabbed Asia and jumped away as a flurry of pink spears impaled the ground where they were. "Before we kill you, tell us your name, little devil," the short blonde girl said as the blonde delinquent deadpanned. Naruto was literally taller than both of them. "Naruto Kujo," Naruto said as the man with the dual weapons aimed his gun at Naruto. "My name is Fried Shazlin, and she is Mitelt," the newly named Fried said as he pulled the trigger and sent bullets at Naruto. Exclamation mark. Fallen World cried as it caught the bullets. "I'll have to rely on Fallen World for now. I can't fight for myself because I have to stick close to Asia," Naruto thought to himself. He then caught a pink spear with his left hand and threw it back at Mitelt. He then looked at his hand and noticed it was hurt from catching it. Sona said something about devils being weak to holy and light weapons. Naruto thought as Fried charged at the blonde once more. Fallen World then smashed its fist into Fried's head and sent him flying back. The short swordsman then glowed red and slammed into the floor. "Take this," Mitelt yelled as she sent multiple pink spears at Naruto. Now being focused on the spears, Fallen World began hitting them away rapidly as Fried stopped glowing red. Naruto, with the help of his stand, picked up a bench and hit the short fallen angel with it. Mitelt was sent crashing through the church walls and slammed into the outside. Fried took this chance and charged at Naruto. "Naruto, look out," Asia yelled as Naruto took note of Fried. But it was too late as Fried drove his sword through Naruto's stomach. Fried smirked, he believed this to be the end of the devil before him. That smirk vanished as Fallen World began to punch his sword into pieces. The golden Spartan-themed stand then hit Fried with the hardest and fastest blows it can muster. With one final punch, Fried was sent outside with Mitelt. "Yar yar days, this is gonna hurt," Naruto said as he pulled the remaining piece from within him. The delinquent then fell to the floor and coughed up blood. "Don't worry, Naruto. I can heal you," Asia said as a ring appeared on her left hand and it began to glow. She placed it on the wound on Naruto's stomach. The delinquent felt his wound begin to close as Asia began to heal him. Unknown to Asia, a pink spear flew from the shadows, intent of piercing Asia. Naruto quickly shoved Asia out of the way before the spear could pierce her. Asia turned to face the delinquent and asked why he shoved her, but was shocked to see Naruto with a spear sticking out of his chest. The spear appeared to be an inch above his heart. "Naruto," Asia said as the delinquent coughed up blood, which landed on her face. The spear disappeared as Asia heard footsteps as someone walked into the light. "Well, looks like I got my revenge," Rainer said as she walked into the light leaking through the windows of the church. "Now, come over here and heal me," Rainer yelled as Asia noticed most of her body was wrapped in bandages. Asia was about to move to heal Naruto, the door opened. "Oh my, looks like we uncovered something good," a female voice said as the three looked to see the busty Rias Grimori with her peerage. A blonde pretty boy quickly formed a sword and charged at Rainer. He then appeared behind her as Rainer. The fallen angel fell to the floor as a large slash was on her chest. "Asia," Naruto said as he barely moved his head to stare at the blonde nun. She quickly began to heal Naruto as the red-haired devil walked up to her. "Please don't die, Naruto," Asia said as she tried to heal the large wound. It was taking too long and Naruto was losing blood quickly. "Burning love," Asia said as a red dove with fire-like wings formed and began flying around. The dove flew above Naruto's wound and began to glow red, and Naruto's wound began to rapidly heal. Naruto's eyes weakly widened as he now knew how she could see Fallen World. She has a sacred gear and a stand. Naruto thought as he finally lost consciousness. Naruto's eyes began to open as he groaned. He looked around and noticed he was in his room. How did I get here? Naruto thought as he sat up in his bed. The door opened to reveal Asia walking into the room. Naruto! Asia yelled as she hugged the taller blonde. Naruto looked confused as Asia hugged him harder. Asia, what happened? Naruto asked the nun as she looked up at him. All he remembered that Rias walked into tea. He church while he was laying on the ground bleeding to death. Your king came into the church and saved us. She even let me become a devil to have more friends. Asia said as Naruto looked confused. Sona was there. Naruto asked while Asia also looked confused. Who is Sona? I was told that your king is named Rias Grimori. Asia said as Naruto's blood ran cold. The door opened to reveal the red-headed devil. Era, looks like you are awake now. Rias said as she smiled. She stepped into the room as Naruto jumped to the floor and summoned Fallen World. You bitch. Naruto said as Fallen Woe. RLD pulled its fist back and aimed for Rias' face. Exclamation mark. Fallen World cried as it punched at Rias. The fist landed in the wall next to Rias' head as a small cut appeared on her cheek. What seems to be the problem, Naruto? Rias asked as the rest of her peerage barged into the room, ready to defend their king. You know why, you tricked Asia into joining your peerage. Tricking an innocent girl. Naruto said as Rias smirked. Well, I did need another piece for my peerage. Rias said as Naruto stood in front of Asia, acting like a protective older brother. Naruto gritted his teeth until he couldn't take it. He summoned Fallen World and it charged at them. Mura. Tilda. A petite silver-haired girl stood in front of Rias and crossed her arms to block the punches but was useless as she was sent through the wall. Naruto ducked under a sword swing and kicked the blonde pretty boy in the legs for a leg sweep. Exclamation mark. Tilda Fallen World cried as it punched him in the stomach. Naruto was then hit by lightning. Naruto screamed in pain as Asia fell on her butt to avoid being shocked. Now will you calm down? Akino asked as she licked her lips as she walked up to Naruto, who was still being shocked by the lightning. Kaneko and Kiba went back to their king's side. Gotcha bitch. Naruto said as he grabbed Akino's face and transferred her own lightning on her. Akino screamed in pain as her own lightning shocked her. The lightning cut off as she had burn marks on her. Team 4-star reference. Naruto threw Akino back to Rias as she caught her oldest friend. I'm warning you, stop this nonsense at once. Rias said as she was surrounded by a red energy that began to destroy the walls. Exclamation mark. Tilda Fallen World cried as it punched the floor. The room glowed red as walls began to crack. And I'm telling you, I'll bring this whole fucking house down. Naruto said as parts of the ceiling fell on some of Rias' peerage. Please stop this Naruto. Asia cried out as Naruto's eyes widened. The house stopped glowing red. Rias let out a sigh and prepared to leave, but was met with a punch to the face. Leave my house now, or else I won't hold back. Naruto said as Rias' nose began to bleed. The peerage left in a teleportation circle and Naruto sat down on the bed. Asia sat next to him and the two sat in silence. Are you mad at me? Asia asked the taller blonde. Naruto said nothing but he brought the petite blonde into a hug. No, I'm not. I'm just mad at Rias tricked you like that. Plus, how can I be mad at an adorable little sister? Naruto said. Asia grew on Naruto despite the short time they spent together. She was the type of girl that anyone can get along with her. She acted like an adorable little sister he always wanted. Asia blushed in embarrassment as she buried her face in Naruto's arm. His caused Naruto to slowly chuckle before it turned out into full-blown laughter. His laughter stopped when a magic circle appeared on the floor and Sona appeared. Sona, Naruto said as he stood up with Asia hiding behind her. Naruto, care to explain why Rias came into my office, with a bloody nose along with her peerage beaten up, and saying you threatened her? Sona asked as she pushed her glasses up. And who is this? Sona asked as she noticed Asia. The now former nun introduced herself to the Sitri heiress. Naruto explained what happened to his king as she grew silent. Well, I guess if she's gonna stay with you, a larger home is required. Sona said as this was a one-bedroom house. Also because the walls and ceilings were crumbling. The next day, Naruto was showing Asia around the town, also to buy some more clothes. There was no school today and the two needed time before the house was ready. Sona was also working on paperwork so Asia can join Kuoh Academy. Naruto said he would do it, but Sona said she will do it. The reason is because there was some bad blood between Naruto and Rias peerage. Now Naruto is sitting on a small bench in the clothes store while Asia is trying on an outfit. The delinquent tried to ignore the women talking about him being in there. They quickly stopped when Asia came out wearing a beautiful white and blue sundress with a yellow ribbon around the waist of the dress. The women now started saying how it was a date or he was her older brother. How is this? Asia said as she twirled around in the dress. Naruto gave her a thumbs up as she went to change. This went on for a half hour until they left with 3 other outfits. They left the small store and walked around the mall some more. What do you want to do, Asia? Naruto asked as he carried the bags of clothes. He felt like it was the job of a big brother to do this. Let's get something to eat, Asia said as she pointed to a burger shop. Naruto ordered and paid for their food. When they received it, Asia was surprised by the size of the hamburger. Naruto showed her how to eat it and fell in love with the food. Naruto chuckled at the expression Asia made when she bit into the hamburger. Naruto felt like the two were being watched. He noticed Rias and Akino were in the same store they were in just a while ago. They were also looking directly at them. Looks like they are keeping watch so I don't try to influence Asia in any way, Naruto thought as he placed his food down. Is something wrong? Asia asked her older brother as she stopped eating. Naruto reassured her nothing was wrong. She returned to eating her hamburger while Naruto tried to think of what to do if Rias tries to do something. I will still beat her near death if she does something to Asia. Nah, Naruto thought as he mentally prepared himself for he was about to ask. So Asia, how did you get burning love? Naruto asked, mentioning the flaming dove. The former nun thought about it for a minute before she thought of what to say. Well, I had it when I was young. When my twilight healing wasn't enough, burning love was used to help heal the wounded. Asia explained as Naruto nodded his head. So she was born with her stand. She didn't get it with the arrow. I guess her sacred gear helps her not feel the side effects of the stand. She is too nice of a person to control her stand. The power to control a sacred gear is the same to control a stand. Naruto thought to himself as he knew she lacked the fighting spirit to control burning love. He then noticed Rias came closer and he believes she can hear them. Naruto then noticed, the humans began to drop one by one. Asia grew confused and scared as Naruto checked on a nearby man and realized he was unconscious. It's okay, they're just unconscious, Naruto said as Rias and Akino walked up to them. Asia walked behind Naruto as the opposing devils stood in front of the two. What do you want, Rias? Naruto said as we readied himself to summon Fallen World just in case. I was gonna ask you why everybody just fainted like that, Rias asked as Naruto grew curious. She wasn't the reason for them unconscious. We're the reason for these lowly humans being unconscious, a new voice said as the devils looked up so see Rainer along with her subordinates in the air with Freed jumping down from the second floor. Naruto noticed that Kalawarner was gone. Most likely dead because of the condition she was in due to the explosions from last time. My name is Rainer if you didn't already know. I am here for the nun, more specifically, her sacred gear, Rainer said. By the time she finished saying this, Naruto picked up the table they were sitting at and threw it. Quote! Naruto yelled as the table hit Danesik, sending him into the wall. The fallen angels scattered and Freed started shooting at the devils as his sword is destroyed. Mura! Cried Fallen World as it caught the bullets. Naruto then jumped in the air to avoid pink spears that were thrown at him. Fallen World grabbed a hanging banner to circle around the fallen angels. Use your wings, Naruto, Sona yelled, but she forgot she never told Naruto how to use them. Don't need to, Naruto said as Fallen World touched Naruto's clothes. His whole body glowed blue. Naruto kicked off a wall and was floating through the air, using his stand to block or hit away light spears. He stopped glowing, fell to the floor, and slammed his heel into Freed's head. The crazed man could do nothing as he crashed into the floor and created a crater on the floor. He glowed red and he crater formed more cracks on the ground. Stay there, Naruto said as he turned to face the other opponents. Rainer, Danasik, and Midelt ignored the devils and just aimed their bloodlust at the blonde delinquent. He dodged a spear thrown by Danasik and charged so fast the ground under him was destroyed. A fist was lodged in the fallen angel's stomach and sent him flying and then crashing into a nearby wall. Naruto yelled as he, in conjunction of fallen world, gave the trenchcoat-wearing man a powerful uppercut. Everyone was shocked to see that the fallen angel's head was ripped off his body and the severed head was sent flying upwards and then crashing down on the ground. Death battle reference to Balrog vs TJ combo. It's hard to not lose your head during battles. Naruto slightly joked and turned to face the others. Rainer and Midelt flew above him and dropped a few ball-like objects fall and crashed onto the floor. Smoke erupted from the balls and Naruto covered his mouth and nose with his bandana. It's okay, the smoke is not poisoned this time. I would rather kill you myself than use the poison smoke again. Rainer said as she and Midelt flew into the smoke. Naruto felt something brush against his neck and turned around and used Fallen World to punch whatever was there. The punches hit nothing but air as Naruto heard laughter from behind him. Naruto saw multiple lights flying through the smoke and jumped into the air to avoid the spears. He then used Fallen World to catch a wave of bullets shot at him from the smoke. Fried then jumped from the smoke and headed towards Naruto. The stray exorcist threw a grenade at the blonde delinquent and aimed his pistol. Fallen World quickly grabbed the grenade and threw it back at the crazed blonde. When this happened, Fried pulled the trigger just as the grenade was an inch from the end of the pistol's barrel. The crazed stray exorcist screamed in pain as he was engulfed by the explosion by his own grenade. When he landed, the smoke was cleared and a strange metal object was thrown at his feet. It then exploded and Naruto could no longer see. Flashbang grenade, Naruto thought, and he summoned Fallen World to try to protect him. It was useless as he required to see to use his stand correctly. He then felt pain in his stomach as someone stabbed a light spear into the blonde delinquent. An other spear was stabbed into his left foot, then one in his right foot, then one in his shoulder, then his other one. Naruto fell to the ground with multiple stand wounds and coughed up blood. He's true. GG led to stand and ended up falling to his knees. Well, looks like the little delinquent is no match for us now. Rainer said as she kicked the delinquent on the head, which caused him to go back down to the ground. Burning love, Asia said as the burning phoenix stand flew to the blonde delinquent and landed on his back. The flaming dove turned to face Rainer and it opened its beak. A torrent of fire flew from the beak and the busty fallen angel flew back to avoid the flames. After this, burning love glowed and Naruto's wounds began to rapidly heal. After a minute, the blonde delinquent was fully healed and he stood up. He cracked his neck and glared at the fallen angel. My first mistake for leaving you two alive, I will not let that happen again. Naruto said as he began to walk towards the two fallen angels. He stopped as Rainer's body began to change to the form of Issei's girlfriend, Yuma. Help me, Issei. Rainer yelled in her Yuma voice as she looked behind Naruto. A rapid pace of footsteps caused Naruto to turn around. He saw Issei run at him with a red gauntlet on his left hand. The brown-haired pervert jumped and punched Naruto's face with the gauntlet. The other devils gasped as Naruto's head turned to the left. Issei's confidence was gone as he fell on his ass and began to crawl backwards in fear. Fallen angel as it slugged Issei across the face and sent him flying away. Naruto then turned to face the fallen angels. Midelt charged at him with a spear in hand. Fallen World backhanded her into the wall, which caused her to tear through the wall and through a few others. She finally stopped as she was impaled through the back by the tail of a dragon statue that was made of metal. Rainer attempted to run, but Fallen World kicked her in the side of her legs. She was sent flying away and landed on the wall. She slid down with her legs in different angles, her legs were broken. She attempted to make a light spear, but Naruto punched her hand and broke it along with her fingers. Rainer screamed in pain and looked up at Naruto in fear. Please, show mercy. Rainer pleaded as she looked up at the tall delinquent. Naruto said nothing as he reached into his pocket. He pulled out a cigarette and a silver flip lighter with a golden star on it. He lit the cigarette and took a long drag from his cigarette. Naruto then put out his cigarette by destroying it with Fallen World. How many people have asked you for mercy? It's people like you that make me sick. I hope you rot in hell with the rest of your group. Naruto said as Fallen World approached her. Rainer didn't have enough time to flinch as Fallen World gave her the last beating she will receive in her life. Mur Amura. Tilda Fallen World cried as it gave Rainer its most powerful punches. By the time the spiritual being was finished, all of Rainer's bones were broken, lungs and other organs impaled by her broken ribs, her skull caved in. She was dead before Fallen World finished his beating. He just turned around as Asia ran and hugged the blonde delinquent with all the strength she had in her petite body. Oh, you're okay, Naruto ni. I was scared that you were gonna get killed or worse. Asia said as she began to cry and buried her head into his chest. She stopped crying as she felt a hand on top of her head. Asia looked up and saw Naruto's hand on her head with the delinquent smiling down at her. Sorry for worrying you, Asia. Now, let's go home. Naruto said as he led her out of the mall, leaving the stunned devils. I should have also reincarnated him when I had the chance. I need all the help I can get for that, Rias thought as she watched the two siblings leave the mall. Thanks for watching.